vested interests at stake here. That's the first thing we'll say, and they clearly are. And in any war, ordinary people lose out. It's ordinary Russians who are losing their lives, it's ordinary Ukrainians, and it's ordinary Europeans who are suffering and choosing between heating or eating this winter as the sanctions go on. And we have a media and a political establishment that is hell-bent on ensuring that our people, I suppose, trundle along with their narrative that this is somehow a battle between authoritarianism and democracy, which was exactly the same type of rubbish that we heard in the Iraq war. It's not about that. It's been driven by the military-industrial complex. Putin's illegal invasion gave NATO what it wanted, sadly, was the excuse now to engage in what could almost be endless war at the level it's going at now. We've seen the billions of dollars being collected in the US, supposedly for Ukraine. Actually, most of that money stays in the US and goes to the arms companies and the military-industrial complex. We've the same things in Europe. Loans being given, conditions attached. This is capitalism's free for all, really, where they have a, I suppose, what would you call it? I don't know, a study, an economic study where the Ukrainian people are cannon fodder and their country is an experiment really for global capitalism. I mean, the EU has been investing in Ukraine for years now. The corruption, the money has been sidelined by their leaders. Now the opposition is imprisoned. Trade unions have been stripped of a lot of their rights. And as you were highlighting earlier, global capital is eyes on the rise of.
Hello, my friends. Hello, my family. We are back. Welcome to RBN Wednesday Evening Live. I don't know. I guess I should call this Nick at Night. I don't know how you guys like that name. I couldn't join CJ earlier today, so I had a few headlines I wanted to talk about. Let's put it up here. RBN Wednesday Evening Live. Also, we'll be looking at some chats. Feel free to leave any comments if you guys want to discuss any of the stories we will be covering. I'm gonna watch more of the Clare Daly and Russell Brand conversation. Clare Daly has been fantastic calling out NATO, fantastic in calling out Western imperialism. And if we had some Clare Dalys in the United States, you wouldn't see us having videos discussing how we are ran and been led off a cliff by the boutique left. You wouldn't see so many videos about AOC, Ilhan Omar, and Bernie Sanders selling us out. If only we had someone like Clare Daly to point to, right? You guys know how much I would love to pull a clip. I would love to be in a reality where it's Bernie Sanders on the Senate floor saying these things. But we got to look across the pond. We got to look at anti-war Irish MPs. We got to look at other news stations globally that's telling the truth on this story. And that's one of the first things we're going to get into. We're going to watch the Russell Brand, Clare Daly interview. We're also going to cover Ilhan Omar defending the FBI. So they had their official vote over the Republicans' probe into the FBI, them looking into FBI and looking for accountability. And every single Democrat voted no. Every single Democrat voted no for holding the FBI accountable. Ilhan Omar and the squad included. And you have Ilhan Omar being the good Democrat that she is. She's going to put out a statement that is literally nothing but partisan garbage defending it. And you had Hakeem Jeffries that was tweeting about how the Republicans are the extremist anti-FBI party. There were Chuck Schumer on Morning Joe, where he said, no matter what happens, we are not going to allow the Republican Party to defund the FBI. So this is what we are. The Overton window, in terms of mainstream electoral political politics, is extremely ridiculous right now. The easiest thing to understand is to understand that we have two parties that are ruled by capital, that are authoritarian. But we have a situation right now where we have one party, the Democrat Party, that is unapologetically apologizing for these structures that we're supposed to be trying to hold accountable, like the FBI, the CIA, the military-industrial complex. Now they're all for funding the police more. They've been running against Republicans, essentially competing on who will fund the police more. Joe Biden in the Democrat Party last election said if you guys vote for the Republicans, they will defund the police. And they technically told the truth because Republicans cut COVID funds, and they use that as a way to explain that Republicans cut funding for the police, right? Then Joe Biden took office, and he took all the COVID relief funds that liberals claim they care so much about, and he gave it to the police. We are in a full-fledged police state. We have massive homelessness. I got videos. Maybe I may say that for tomorrow, but I got videos showing the exploding homelessness epidemic. But liberals are still sending billions or more to Ukraine, and Ukraine is losing. Ukraine is losing despite the corporate media spin, and we get to that here very soon. First, I'm gonna start with this video because Indian state TV, unlike the United States, and I've been seeing this much more often. I'm gonna show you guys another clip from Spanish TV where you have other countries that is less propagandized than us, that is asking the basic questions about the Ukraine war. So let me show you guys this clip. It's very fascinating. So not only do we have Indian state TV, we have Spanish state TV, and I think one of the reasons why you guys see this segment that I'm about to show you guys from India is because India is getting extremely frustrated with the West, telling them to put their own needs and international interests behind the West's ambition to weaken Russia. So I think now on India state TV, they like, we had enough of this, so we can expose the lies of the Ukraine war. And this is extremely fascinating. Extremely fascinating. And the Ukraine war, despite the narrative that coming from the West, is actually making it so the West is more isolated. They keep saying stuff like Russia lost all their friends, that Russia and Putin made this giant miscalculation. Meanwhile, BRICS is expanding. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia and Russia are increasing their relations. You have Brazil and Russia that is now escalating their relationship to the next level. I'm gonna cover that here very soon. The new Brazilian-China cooperation agreement that Lula and Brazil is extremely invested in. So you had Russia that's actually making these deals and isolating the West despite what they're telling you. So let me show you guys this clip. This is from Indian state TV, and they are allowed to tell the truth about Ukraine because they're tired of the West telling them what they should do, and their political loyalties should lie on the story. So let's listen to this.
They say there are two sides to every story. Consider both before you form an opinion. Easier said than done. Look at the conflict in Ukraine. One side is dominating the global narrative. The other side has been proclaimed the villain. I'm talking about NATO and Russia. But what led the world to the point of this invasion? Leaders in Moscow say they are the aggrieved party. They are the victims of NATO's eastward march in self-defense. Here's why. Over the past 20
You hear what she said? So as the West become even more unhinged in their battle for unipolar dominance, you're gonna have countries like India, China. You had Zelensky. You had Lula in Brazil that did the same thing. I'm gonna show you guys a clip from Spanish TV where they're telling the truth. You have Clare Daly that been getting these amazing speeches. I'm gonna show you her interview with Russell Brand. But you guys notice how other countries and other media is starting to catch on. They're starting to catch on. Africa was very quick because they we know the history of NATO in Africa. We know what AFRICOM has done. We know what you guys have done. There's no Russian imperial flags in Africa, so they was quick to reject it. Now you're starting to see more and more of this. You're seeing massive protests in Europe that have been censored and covered up by the Western media over the rise of gas prices and the cost of living because of the funding of the Ukraine war. All this stuff is being covered up by the West, but not internationally. So let's continue the video.
25 years, NATO has been creeping closer to the Russian border. Former Soviet states have become NATO members. This military alliance has technically absorbed the entire security belt of Moscow. Russia sees this expansion as a provocation. It hurts their security interests and won't end well for both sides, they said. The warnings were clear. NATO ignored them. Call it their myopia or arrogance. They downplayed Moscow's concerns, kept proceeding with new rounds of expansion until things blew up in Ukraine. Did NATO push Ukraine into this war? NATO cannot escape the blame for what's unfolding in Ukraine. In 1989, the Berlin Wall collapsed. In 1991, the Soviet Union disintegrated and the Iron Curtain was completely demolished. Europe's regional order hinged on one question: should Germany align itself with the US and NATO, or should it join the Russians through the Warsaw Pact? The US government, under George H.W. Bush, made an offer to Russian President Mikhail Gorbachev. It suggested if Germany became a NATO member, NATO would stop expanding, not 1 inch eastwards. No new members. Today, the US says it made no such promise, that no such deal was ever struck, but hundreds of memos, meeting minutes, and transcripts from US archives indicate otherwise. Nevertheless, Moscow bought the offer. It demolished the Warsaw Pact in the hope that the West would follow suit, that NATO too would be dissolved. But that never happened. NATO refused to cease operations. And to add insult to injury, they kept the door for membership open. Russia saw it as a stab in the back, and NATO kept pushing the dagger deeper. Look at the situation in Russia's backyard. It does not end there. As of 2021, NATO officially recognized 3 more aspiring members: Bosnia and Herzegovina, Georgia, and Ukraine. Last we checked, NATO was also in talks with Sweden, Finland, and Serbia for membership. So to put it simply, much of Eastern Europe, which once used to be part of the Soviet Union, has now joined NATO. And this happened despite Russia's protests and warnings. The last reasonably...
This breakdown is incredible. And this is the exact same history that we explained to you guys on the RBN. The same thing you hear a lot of our friends and allies say, like the Convo Couch, like Jimmy Dore, like Aaron Mate, the Gray Zone. Like many of the people that we had that explained to you guys the history of this country, the West has censored. They label people Russian state media on Twitter. They suppress people's account for even talking about this. This stream is already being suppressed as hell because I got Ukraine in the title, but it is what it is. But the West massively miscalculated because they expected everyone in the world to go along with their collective amnesia, as if they can completely rewrite history and no one would notice. The BBC did a segment like 9 years ago explaining how Ukraine is a massively divided country, on how a lot of people in Eastern Ukraine want to leave and become Russian because they are tired of the antagonism and the fascism that comes from the Western Ukrainian fascists and Nazis. The BBC used to do these stories. The New York Times used to do these stories. So now, ever since to justify the most propagandized war I've seen in my lifetime, to justify this conflict that has no justification, they have to censor people to death, and they have to just completely unapologetically rewrite history. And you see it's not working in the rest of the world. Let's continue.
Friendly warning from Moscow came in the year 2007. Vladimir Putin addressed the annual Munich conference, where he said, and I'm quoting, "NATO has put its frontline forces on our borders. This expansion represents a serious provocation that reduces the level of mutual trust, and we have the right to ask against whom is this expansion intended and what happened to the assurances our Western partners made after the dissolution of the Warsaw Pact." These sentiments have been echoed by a host of American strategists. I'll give you a few examples. June 1997, 50 prominent foreign policy experts signed an open letter to President Bill Clinton calling America's efforts to expand NATO a policy error of historic proportions. Then we have George Kennan, the father of America's containment policy during the Cold War. He too called NATO expansion a tragic mistake with no reason whatsoever. The warnings went...
Now those same people are trying to gaslight the entire world where they be like, Russia is worried about NATO. Why would they be worried about NATO? We never made no promises like that. They try to paint it as Russian security concerns are invalid, ignoring the fact that we will respond not only the same way Russia did, but way worse. If Mexico had Nazis that was strictly anti-American and it was killing Americans in Mexico, how will we react? And if Mexico broke multiple agreements with us in the process, and they said they won't be sympathy, they won't have no sympathies toward Russia, right? Like, can you imagine what we would do in the same situation as the Russians been put in? especially considering the history where you had the Nazis that invaded through Ukraine. You had Napoleon that invaded through Ukraine. You talking about people that went through massive amount of trauma that have been invaded multiple times by the West, but so many people on the West are like, oh my God, Russia is lying about the whole NATO thing. Which is why when you see people do amazing segments like this journalist is, they bring up the old quotes showing that Western leaders know exactly what they was doing. Western leaders knew exactly what they was doing. And they wanted this war. They wanted this conflict. Why? Because Raytheon, Boeing, they got record profits right now. It's literally that simple. As Julian Assange explained, war is not about winning. They are losing. They're losing pretty epically right now. NATO, that's why they approving even more weapon packages. NATO countries are saying that they have ran out. They're running low on their stockpiles, but the West and but the United States and Zelensky is demanding more. Will they be flooding eastern Ukraine with this much weapons? Would it be this much of a panic? Would there be this much propaganda if they was winning? There's no way anyone could believe that. So let's continue. They only got another minute and a half left, and then we move on to the next part. Well, I'll show you guys Spanish TV saying the same thing.
Went on for decades. In 2008, William J. Burns, the U.S. ambassador to Moscow, wrote a letter to the State Department where he said that Ukrainian entry into NATO is the brightest of all red lines for the Russian elite. He said that even Putin's sharpest critics at home consider Ukraine's entry a direct challenge to Russian interests. It does not end there. This is Robert M. Gates. He was the defense secretary in the Bush and Obama administrations. He wrote in his memoir that trying to bring Georgia and Ukraine into NATO was truly overreaching. Then we have Strobe Talbot, a former Deputy Secretary of State. He described the Russian perception in a similar way, how they consider NATO as a vestige of the Cold War, and point out that if the Warsaw Pact was disbanded, why did the West not dismantle NATO? So several voices in the Western world had warned that Russia's protests have merit and that NATO expansion could spell serious trouble. Yet, successive American administrations paid no heed to these warnings. When we analyze why Ukraine was attacked, all of this needs to be taken into account.
Now do you guys see why they're so desperate to promote the bullshit that this was some sort of unprovoked war? Like Noam Chomsky himself said, there's a reason why they are given these lines. Because if you say they're unprovoked, people won't look into it. But there's legitimate history here. There is legitimate Western antagonism here. Now, I'm going to show you guys this. This is the stockpiles. You had the NATO and EU even admit this. I'll put this up as the banner. NATO running out of weapon, depleted military resources. So you have NATO, and I'm gonna show you this video where this guy literally even admits it, right? So here it is. This is Stoltenberg. I'll put this video up, and they literally admitting that they don't know where the rest of the weapons going to come from. The United States has been covering a lot of this. There was stories that show that Germany had to tap out. Europe is being forced to become as militaristic as the United States. Okay, I'll pull. Let's watch this first. I'll show you guys a few more receipts here. Come back. Here it is. I'm gonna check the audio and then we can watch this video here, because this is a question that people that think Ukraine is winning, they don't ask themselves, like, what is the long-term strategy? Are we just gonna continue to pump weapons and resources into Ukraine, even though they are losing massive territories and cities right now? But let's check this out.
Maybe I could start by saying that you are right that NATO allies and EU members have depleted their stocks to provide support to Ukraine, and that has been the right thing to do, because this is also about our security, and of course we need to use our capabilities, our stocks, our ammunition to support Ukraine. And I've also been asked, and I've told NATO allies that if they had to choose between meeting all the NATO guidelines on stocks, on capabilities, or to support Ukraine, it's more important to support Ukraine. And therefore, we have been able to provide unprecedented level of support to Ukraine over many months. But of course, when we are depleting our stocks, there's only one long-term solution to that, and that is to produce more. And that's also the reason why NATO defense ministers took decisions to increase our stockpiles of munitions and equipment when they met last fall. We have also a long-standing defense planning process and capability targets for each and every ally, including stocks and ammunition. And we are revising them to ensure that we have enough stocks, both to protect our own territory, but also to provide.
I just want to let you guys know, the people with this ideology, these people in this room just talk nonchalantly talking about flooding the market with weapons, even though we already depleted our stockpiles, right? That we're gonna literally bleed other countries dry to demand them to make more weapons as their energy bill continue to go up. These people are the biggest psychopaths, the most violent pro-war people on the planet. Why will you have Putin derangement syndrome, but you have no criticism of this guy? This is an insane neocon.
Provide support for Ukraine. And we are also working with the European Union. We had Commissioner Breton here just before Christmas, and we are on the staff level looking into how we can coordinate our efforts, because this is about ramping up production, of course, in EU, NATO allies, but also in allies that are not members of the European Union. And we have engaged directly with the industry, and they are now ramping up production.
They are now ramping up production. Let's see if I can find this story here, where here it is. I'll pull this one up. I got a lot of them. The arsenal of democracy is back in business. Proposed U.S. arms sales to NATO almost doubled this past year as Russian aggression spooked the continent. Japan doubled their military budget. Germany is now a militaristic state once again because of this unhinged reaction from the West because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Now there are stories about how it's devastating when you look at the projections that a lot of these countries who usually don't spend much of their military in terms of percentage, but they are following the United States model. This is a story that came out about 12, 13 days ago before the new year. It's that European defense spending no longer a laughing matter. 2023 preview. So we already setting records. We already militarizing former unhinged imperial states like Germany and Japan in order to fight the Russian boogeyman. To the point where these countries are already starting to deplete their stockpiles. And that guy said, oh, don't worry, we're about to ramp up production. Not to provide for the people, but to build more weapons. Meanwhile, if you listen to China, if you listen to speeches that Xi gave last year when the Chinese Communist Party regained their position, he pretty much was saying, oh, we're going to build stuff. It's like, okay, we got this plan for high-speed rail. We got this plan for improving internet access. We have this plan for decreasing poverty. We listen to Lula, his whole first speech was about ending poverty, feeding people. But the West is all about defeating Putin, building more weapons, more death and destruction. Now here's Spanish TV with some more uncomfortable truths. Maybe I should do a chat check. I haven't been looking at the chat. It's hard to do while I'm on. What's poppin', fam? Super chat from my friend Jay here. Easier to see comments, especially when I do solo streams. So if you guys definitely want me to read it, leaving a super chat is a great way to do that. Also a great way to support the show. Appreciate you guys. Thank you for the 999J. You can't sanction a country, fund extremists at the border, encroach on their sphere of influence, place hostile military forces at the border, and expect them not to react. That is what so many people who think they are anti-imperialists believe. As anti-imperialists, we respect a country's sovereignty. So it's upon us to hold our countries accountable and how they are being aggressive. So if you're anti-imperialist in the West, why are you spending all your time calling out Putin and his aggression instead of what you are responsible for, calling out the United States and NATO? And you guys vote for, and people vote for politicians that sending weapons to Taiwan, that want to escalate war with Russia. As anti-imperialists, the best we can do is advocating for respecting national sovereignty, which the West, and as people who live in the United States Western Imperial Core, we have not done. They have not done. So I'm gonna show you guys this Western. Actually, I'm gonna show you guys this Spanish TV clip where you have more uncomfortable truths being spoken, because I think like now the first year shock of Russia invading Ukraine, a lot of people are starting to shake that off, right? Now you have people digging the history, asking questions. So I'll play this clip, and this actually subtitles. So I'll read out a little bit for you guys. Check this out. This person says the war will end when Russia occupies all of Ukraine. So he's saying that there's no way this war ends any other way than Ukraine losing. Then the host says, but do you see that as feasible? Well, Putin these days has been saying a lot of things and doing things. So when I hear people say this is a warm winter, I say the Russian winter is coming. I agree with the previous caller that there are many conflicts in the world, and it seems that only Ukraine exists. But to focus on this conflict, I remind people that since 2014, the Donbass has been shelled by Ukraine. Say it louder for the American audiences, sir. Say it louder for the Europeans in the back. He says since 2014, the Donbass has been shelled by Ukraine. This is the reality that the NATO left and the Ukraine flag wavers refuse to acknowledge. And to me, I think it's quite disgusting, because what does that say? These people claim that we should expand the military-industrial complex, that we should increase the profits of Boeing and Raytheon, and they do it under the guise of, oh, I'm a morally right person, I'm a morally justified person, I care about the lives of Ukrainians. I have empathy. That's how they say all the wars. Oh, we're the good, malevolent, we are the good force that's here to take out evil, right? We're here to take out the evil communistic Vietnamese. We're here to take out Saddam Hussein. Now Putin is the new one. And then they get people to repeat the bullshit lie that this is an unprovoked war. And now you got a bunch of morons in the US left that had no idea about Ukrainian history, of Russian-Ukrainian conflict. The way I describe it, and you can criticize Russia all you want for joining this conflict, but this is Russia getting involved in a long conflict. Like, so this thing did not start in 2014. This is Russia intervening because they was asked to by people in the Donbass, by Eastern Ukraine. Now, you can criticize that decision all you want. That's not my prerogative, because I have the shared interest of reducing NATO influence. And as a socialist, as a communist, and especially as a black man, I stand against killing Nazis and beating Nazis on principle. So if we are able to destroy the Azov Battalion, weaken the influence of the fascists in Ukraine, these are things that all socialists and communists should be striving to achieve. So if you want to criticize Russian invasion, that's fine. But I think NATO needs a check. I think the world needs a check. I think they need Russia and China to check the West. Because despite the narrative, they're the exact opposite. They want to pretend that these people are aggressive. They are not. Anyway, let's continue this.
El Donbass y Donetsk estaban siendo bombardeados por Ucrania y han pasado Navidades.
So he's talking about how Ukraine been shelling the Donbass since 2014. He said they have spent Christmases suffering bombings and power cuts. Now the whole of Ukraine suffers these. It is sad to get to the point of this war, but they have not left them much opinion. Well, that's a question mark here. So I don't know that's a translation issue. But you guys see, I cut this clip off here, but you see in Spanish TV, in India TV, and imagine like this is spreading throughout Africa. Lula is telling the truth to his people in Brazil. Lula himself said that this war is because Zelensky and NATO, they are just as guilty as Russia. So the rest of the world is getting accurate information. Meanwhile, it's the UK, it's the United States, it's Canada that continues to punish people for speaking the truth on this war. But people think we still have freedom of speech in this country. Now I'll show you India, I'll show you Spain. Let's get to the Clare Daly, Russell Brand conversation. And I see you guys having a debate. We found a Ukraine troll in the chat, huh? So I'll let you guys rip it up with that person. Seth Voss is in the chat. Yeah, there's some Ukraine simp raging at our coverage of explaining historical events. There's nothing more that Ukraine simp hates more than people talking about history, right? Let's play. Let's see if I can find some other chats. There are, I'll read this one. There are Africans in the Donbass. Africans were observing their elections. There have been a lot of people that were observing the elections in the Donbass. If there was widespread fraud and corruption, don't you think the West will produce evidence of that at this point, especially when they have a vested interest in delegitimizing the Russian referendums? They don't do it because there's no evidence. They just say stuff and they hope dumb Western chauvinists will believe them. They will say, "Oh my God, of course these referendums are fake." And then people who believe the United States do no wrong, they don't need evidence, they just believe them. Right? The same way that the United States said the Venezuelan elections were fraudulent, despite that even Jimmy Carter election group went down there and said the election was pristine. A ton of election observer groups went to Venezuela and found their election to be clean. They do the same thing to Russia as well. Let's see. I'll really make sure you guys leave some super chats so I can really get to comments that you really want to leave. They're too many for me to go through on my own, and we already 30 minutes in. I want to keep these evening streams a little bit shorter, but we'll see. Let's play the video of Russell Brand and Clare Daly, and leave a comment. I want to know what your guys' thoughts on Russell Brand is. I haven't watched his channel because I generally don't like getting news from celebrities, but Russell Brand does seem like he's on point. He's always been known as like a lefty amongst celebrities. And I say that because just because like the mainstream call you a lefty don't mean you are a lefty, but he's been extremely critical of power, critical of the Republican and Democrat Party, also critical of the West. I think he lives in the UK, right? But I seen that movie Forgetting Sarah Silverman or whatever. That's like the only thing I really know about Russell Brand. I'm not a big celebrity person, so I haven't watched him a lot. But from what I've seen, he seemed to be very principally anti-war, which is good. Which is good. He's really good at calling out the COVID narrative. So especially after this interview, and I've seen a few snippets of him calling out the Ukraine war, maybe I should pay attention to more of their segments. I saw a clip of this on Twitter, so I decided to hunt it down on his Rumble channel. And I think it was obviously a very informative conversation. People like Clare Daly has been very successful at shifting the Overton window on the Ukraine Russia situation. And so when you see this interview, and when you see the success that Clare Daly had and changed people's minds on this, I can't help but state like how disappointing that we don't have an American politician doing the same, right? That we don't have any sort of progressive left, elected left, that is doing the same thing. Ilhan Omar, LC, Jamal Bowman, Bernie Sanders, not a one. So actually, when I'm alone, I'm always extremely paranoid. So let me check the audio one more time, and then let's get to the video. I don't know exactly how much we're gonna watch, but I think there's a lot of good points made here. And I also want to see how Russell Brand generally talks about the Ukraine war. So let's check this out.
I've always been nervous of him. We once did speak to a leader of an opposition party.
Yeah.
It was not a success.
Didn't go well.
Not for anyone. We've got Clare Daly, though, who is a rare and special thing, a vocal critic of the war in Ukraine, therefore a voice for peace and diplomacy. And
I'm going to update the banner. Here we go.
that's where we're going to connect. We're on Blacklist, but to get you in the mood and to get us right in the mood, even though I've seen this already, let's have a look at Clare Daly in.
So Russell was like, I'm interested in talking to anyone who's on the blacklist. So I'm sure that isn't Russell Brand like UK, right? Especially him speaking out against the UK war, the Ukraine war. I can imagine he had a ton of blacklists. Probably on the Ukrainian kill list. Anyone who speak out against this who have a giant platform. Like, that's how I know we made it. If you ever see RBN, if you ever see me on the kill list, that's I'm like, damn, we actually got a platform we're paying attention to. Also because he was a strong COVID critic, which is based challenging power, questioning power, and demanding answers from power is actually extremely based. So those things I can see Russell Brand hitting the ban list on. So let's check this out. This is introduction, Claire. I thought that was funny. So let's check this out.
Parliament giving it some. Check it out.
Billions of EU assistance going to Ukraine are not free. They're loans, which Ukraine will default on. And they come with neoliberal strings attached. If you listen to the economists, Ukraine is marked for a nightmare round of shock therapy, a sell-off of public land, deregulation of labour, sale of public assets, on it goes. The country's...
I wonder if Clare Daly has any idea how much this video goes around. I'm glad that Russell's playing it. It's a good intro. He said he's seen it. This is such a powerful speech. I'm going to just let it play. It's so good.
Future is being sold to finance a proxy war that's tearing it apart. And of course, the loans have preconditions that Ukraine must uphold democracy and rule of law. But since the tap was turned on, Zelensky has banned most opposition parties, shuttered the media, attacked trade unions and workers' rights. But the billions keep flowing. This is a country, our Court of Auditors have said, was a country accused of grand corruption.
Yeah, well, Clare Daly, she's banging, isn't she?
Wow.
She ain't playing. Someone pointed out we've also had Tulsi Gabbard on the show, who's also a politician. So we have had politicians on the show.
She'd left by then, though, hadn't she? Or she
Oh,
left the
okay, I'm
Democrats.
very pedantic. I'm trying my hardest to do a broadcast here, and you're meant to be assisting me. Hey, Claire, that was a pretty amazing speech. You went for the jugular there. You ain't afraid of the truth. Thanks very much for joining us on our show.
Thanks very much for having me.
What does it mean to be blacklisted by the Ukraine Secret Service, and what are the likely consequences of such a thing?
Yeah, I mean, look, your guess is probably as good as mine. I've been on this blacklist now for a couple of months. I believe actually President Lula is on it as well, and quite a number of others. It's
What? I did not know that. How unhinged is Ukraine? They put politicians who speaking about history and calling for peace on the blacklist. They put Lula on the blacklist. Wow, I had no idea, but I'm literally just now hearing about that. And I'm assuming they did that because he said that Zelensky and NATO is just to blame as Putin on this war. That's unbelievable. How does anyone think that Ukraine is in the right? You don't do stuff like that when you know you're in the right. When you fight for justice, there's no need to put people on ban lists. There's no reason to ban opposition parties, ban opposition media. Anyway, let's continue. Let's continue it.
a list that was compiled by a Ukrainian department under the direct authority of Zelensky himself. There was up to 100 international figures, and we were accused of being Russian propagandists. Now, my actual crime for getting on it was two things that I said which found outrage from the Ukrainians. And the first,
they call Clare Daly and Lula a Russian propagandist, despite the fact that many times Clare Daly and Lula straight up said that Russian invasion is illegal. Clare Daly said multiple times, and even in the quote that came from Lula, he even said that Putin has some blame, but Zelensky and NATO have a lot of blame. So they are critical of Russia, but they are still called Russian propagandists simply because they talk about the facts. that NATO expanded and the West promoted Russia, and the best way to solve this conflict is through peace. So saying that the best way to solve the conflict between Russia and Ukraine is through peace gets you labeled a Russian propagandist.
First was that I had the audacity to say that the Ukraine war was a proxy war now between Russia and the US and NATO. That was the first thing. And my second crime was by saying that the sanctions which the European Union was imposing was having an impact on the ordinary citizens of Europe. Now, I happen to think that actually both those things are true, demonstrably so, but yet I was put on this blacklist. What does it mean? I don't know. But I mean, look, can you imagine what would happen if China, for example, did up a blacklist of people who had a different opinion and of international figures of various persuasions?
Bro, that's such a great point by Claire. I gotta start using that. Can you imagine how the Western media will react if China put very prominent Western leaders, like Lula is the leader of the largest Latin American country. Like Brazil has about half the population as South America, and they put them on a blacklist. Can you imagine how authoritarian, anti-free speech they will say about China for doing that? And in Russia, you can access the BBC, UK News, the United States News. In the UK, you can't get RT. You can't get Russian news. So who's really for free speech? Who's really the authoritarian? It's the West, as we already know.
We'd have an outcry from the so-called democratic world that this was an outrageous authoritarian assault, yet that's what happened by the Ukrainians, and there hasn't been a murmur. And, you know, you'd have to say, against the backdrop of open borders with Europe and guns which Interpol and Europol have said are freely being sold on the black market and widely handed out across Ukraine, that putting up a hit list or a hate list of people who are supposedly anti-Ukrainian is a pretty dangerous hit list for the Ukrainian authorities to do. But look, nothing has happened so far, and you know.
And they know the people who are sympathetic to their ideas. The people who are sympathetic to their ideas are the Azov Nazi thugs. Many of them who bragged that the West is funding their ambition for an Aryan state. That's why they want to purge ethnic Russians. That's why they want to purge the Romanis. That's why they want to purge the Muslims, right? Because their goal, and this is the Azov principle, this is the Nazi principle that they trace back to Hitler. They want one people, one race, one nation. That is the ideology of Azov. So they are willing to purge people to make that happen. Why do you guys think the CIA constantly funds the most violent extremists in the world? The most far right, because these are the people that want to go to war with their own people. There's not moderates that is being funded by the United States to overthrow their government. It's only the most crazy motherfuckers you can find in the society. So what Clare Daly is saying is that it's dangerous putting these kill lists out there because, they would say, well, it's not enforceable. Well, if you're on the kill list, rogue Nazis in the Azov battalion and the violent gangsters in Ukraine, they will act on it. They will act on it. And they know what they're doing. They put that list out there to embolden the Nazis in Ukraine, to embolden the most far-right fascist elements of Ukraine. And a lot of these people who have been victimized by this violence. So there's some people that say, oh my God, now you say we can't arm Ukrainians. Not all Ukrainians are Nazis. And I'm like, yes, that's the fucking point. Who you guys think getting the weapons? Who you guys think been literally forced into silence? There was people that showed up to pro-Russian protest that criticized the Zelensky and Western Ukrainian regime, and they was attacked and killed by the Azov battalion and the neo-Nazis in the area. Whenever Russia took land and gained territory, the Ukrainians would go into that territory to find anyone who worked with the Russians, even if they did it to save their life, and then they killed and tortured them. These are things the Western media is not telling you. Very well documented on Telegram and on Twitter. You can get these people that was targeted by the violent Nazis in Ukraine. So if you put out a kill list, that's a nudge suggestion to these people. These are the guys that you go after. Let's continue this a little.
It is what it is.
It used to be an acceptable position to stand with people that were suffering, to be behind the rights of ordinary people, to broadly support humanitarianism. Who among us wouldn't, without being regarded as somehow, I don't know, a conscientious objector or a traitor to the cause? We live in times where censorship has become normalized. If indeed this is a proxy war, if indeed this does afford opportunities to BlackRock, you know, so what's more dangerous to us, blacklists or BlackRock, I wonder? If indeed the military-industrial complex in America are unduly benefiting from this conflict, what is the, why does it become necessary to tell that story? And why is it that we're being invited to believe such a reductive story, which of course has elements of truth in it, criminal invasion, Putin as tyrant? Why is it that we're being offered such a reductive narrative? And why is it accepted by, you know, ordinary people and by, I know, by all of our viewers, that people usually and ordinarily in political...
And I'm not criticizing Russell here because he's doing his due diligence so you don't have liberals go after them. When they say Putin is a tyrant, like, we gotta be careful. Like, how are we defining tyrant? Because if based on the way most people use it, all politicians are tyrants. Every single United States politician is a tyrant because they support wars that their people don't support, right? That's why they call Putin a tyrant. But when you look at Putin's approval rating, when you look at the fact that this passed the Russian Senate, it's not Putin being one tyrannical motherfucker who just randomly decided one day we're going to invade Ukraine. This was something that was supported by Russian politicians for years. The people in Russia support Putin in his war because they know and they have generational trauma for invasions from the West. So this is a question for chat. Is that tyrannical? Following the will of the people? Defending ethnic Russians in an area that was largely culturally Russia? You can make the argument that Putin is tyrannical for other reasons, but I wouldn't make the argument that he's tyrannical for the Ukraine war. I wouldn't make that. He's behaving the same way as we acknowledged before. Every single world leader will act given the same situation. The West broke their treaties. It was Ukraine shelling the Donbass, and they entered the conflict following the will of the Russian people. And this is going based on Russian approval rating polls. And the fact that other Russian politicians were calling for it. If you had a situation where Putin was the single decider, which this is the story the Western media paints, right? That he's holding the Russian country hostage. But in fact, there was a lot of far-right elements, especially in Chechnya. There were a lot of people that was criticizing Putin for not going all out in the war earlier last year. And in the last year, at the end of last year, around April and November, I was hearing conversations of Russian politicians criticizing Putin for going too light on this war, making it drag out too long. So tyranny is when you are literally forcing the country to go in certain ways that the people in the powers that be don't want, but you got a limited power, right? That's not happening here. But anyway, that's just a nitpick from Russell. Let's continue.
Spaces don't engage in this kind of discourse. Why has it become so rare? Why is information being so tightly controlled with regard to this matter in particular?
Yeah, I mean, clearly we haven't got enough time to explore that whole thing, but this is really
Claire,
scary
we
stuff.
do, and we must get, this is where the conclusion has to come in the next 3 or 4 minutes, and we're looking to you. I've seen you talk in that parliament. I think you're the woman for the job.
Okay, well, I normally get a minute, so 3 or 4 sounds like a luxury, but that's a pretty big topic. But look at, okay, there are vested interests at stake here. That's the first thing we'll say, and they clearly are. And in any war, ordinary people lose out. It's ordinary Russians who are losing their lives. It's ordinary Ukrainians, and it's ordinary Europeans who are suffering and choosing between heating or eating this winter as the sanctions go on. And we have a media and a political establishment that is hell-bent on ensuring that our people, I suppose, trundle along with their narrative that this is somehow a battle between authoritarianism and democracy, which was exactly the same type of rubbish that we heard in the Iraq war. It's not about that. It's been driven by the military-industrial complex. Putin's illegal invasion gave NATO what it wanted, sadly, was the excuse now to engage in what could almost be endless war at the level it's going at now. We've seen the billions of dollars being collected.
Now, I'll explain. That is literally one of the best criticisms of Putin I heard. I heard this apparently from some Russian leftists have criticism because all Russians want to halt the expansion of NATO. But the argument that Clare is making here is, and I kind of agree, that they said Putin, by invading Ukraine, gave NATO more political capital to expand. So Sweden and Finland wouldn't be able to expand and join NATO if Russia didn't give the West the go-ahead by invading. Now, you can make the argument that they shouldn't do it anyway, that Sweden and Finland need to be more responsible to the global working class, that the West should be more responsible for the status of the global working class. But we all know they don't give a fuck. So the argument is that, hey, if you want to weaken NATO, you didn't necessarily go about the best way of doing it, right? But then I can see some people making an argument that, hey, we have to take the fight to them right now so they can continue to lose global capital. It depends. That's a very interesting conversation to have. But Clare makes the argument here that Russia invading Ukraine strengthened NATO, which I think objectively you can agree to that, right? What if Russia invading Ukraine would have a long-term detrimental effect on NATO and the global powers? Probably, but I think that's pretty accurate. Let me know in the comments and chat what you guys think, because that is the one criticism I heard of this invasion. I think is pretty solid.
In the US, supposedly for Ukraine, actually most of that money stays in the US and goes to the arms companies and the military-industrial complex. We've the same things in Europe. Loans being given, conditions attached. This is.
I see a comment from my friend Zoya's life. Zoya, I can't put the comment up yet, but she says Russia had no choice, and NATO has always expanded. I see a few people made that comment as well that NATO was going to expand anyway, so Russia had to do it. And I think that's a good counter argument. Like, I'm thinking out loud with you guys. I think that's a good counter argument for what Clare says. Like, what stops NATO expansion? The argument they will make is that NATO expansion, with their invasion, sped up Finland and Sweden. I don't know. I think that's a great comment by Zoya. She said Russia had no choice, and NATO has always expanded. Russia exhausted all other options. Tell Clare to hit me up. I'm still waiting for that amazing Clare RBN interview. Obviously, she was on Russell Brand, of course, because he got like 1 million times more subs than we do. She was on Danny Hyphon. But yeah, that's a very interesting debate, I think.
Capitalism's free for all, really, where they have I suppose, what would you call it? I don't know, a study, an economic study where the Ukrainian people are cannon fodder and their country is an experiment really for global capitalism. I mean, the EU has been investing in Ukraine for years now. The corruption, the money has been sidelined by their leaders. Now the opposition is imprisoned. Trade unions have been stripped of a lot of their rights. And as you were highlighting earlier, global capital has its eyes on the prize of going into a deregulated economy whereby environmental protections are being removed, archaeological protections, planning and regulation, labour rights gone. This is shock therapy like we've never seen it before. And the reason why I suppose there's no discussion allowed is that vested interests are at play globally and they don't want any dissent. What I will say is that the majority of people worldwide can see through this nonsense. And we find, even though we are, I suppose, not lone voices, but minority voices on a political stage, the feedback that we get globally is huge on this. And actually, a majority of the people who live in the countries that are outside of the US and Europe have already seen through this nonsense. They've been the victims of war before. They know what's going on. So, yeah, it's just we don't have a vehicle either politically or in terms of the media for getting that message really out.
And like Clare just said there's been amazing reception from the non-Western, non-US public states, which is around 80 to 85% of the population. They are starting to see through this. That's why I show you that clip from Spanish TV where they talk about Ukraine shelling the Donbass. The clip from Indian TV where they call out the history and how the West provoked Russia. Everyone is catching on. That's why 51 out of 55 African countries did not want to meet with Zelensky. Now, why Lula calling him out, now apparently he's on the ban list. This is why. So I think this is a good time to stop it. This is a great interview. You guys check it out on Russell Brand's Rumble channel. I just want to, we literally almost an hour in. I want to get to the Ilhan Omar story as well. Let me check. Did I get any? Jesus Christ. I have another receipt to share with you guys. But I got to move on to the Ilhan story. I say this. I'm going to save this for Nick and CJ tomorrow. Because I don't know if you guys saw, Cole Pink called out Adam Smith. He's the Democrat on the Arms and Service Committee for escalating nuclear war. I think I'm going to cover that tomorrow because I really do got to get to the Ilhan story. So that's the Clare Daly, Russell Brand conversation. The next story I want to get to is the establishment melting down over the Republicans probing the FBI, threatening to defund the FBI. And here's a clip of Morning Joe having a complete meltdown about the idea that Republicans are challenging these corrupt institutions. And guess who's there to help cheer on this hysteria? The Democrats, Ilhan Omar and the squad. They had a vote on the FBI and having a committee that is designed to hold the FBI accountable, look at misuses and politicization of the FBI. And every single Democrat, every single one, voted against holding the FBI accountable, having FBI accountability. You guys see this long-term theme of our being of this crazy political shift where the Republicans are about holding law enforcement accountable while Democrats are their bootlickers? Yes, FBI is part of law enforcement. So if you vote against this, you're literally saying that it's okay. We don't need any oversight of the FBI. And the reason why Democrats are melting down about this is because they acknowledge and they understand that these secret services, that the FBI, the three-letter agencies, benefit them. Benefit them. I want to see if I can... here's the video. I'm going to show you guys Morning Joe melting down first. This is... You guys know Morning Joe is probably my favorite, like, corporate media of the show, propaganda-wise, because they're like the voice of the establishment. Listen to this. And whenever I see liberals melt down about this to protect their precious intelligence agencies, I love it. So let's listen to this. And this sets up the Ilhan story because Ilhan and the squad is going along with this bullshit that's coming from Morning Joe. And I can't wait for Cenk Uygur, the Majority Report, and a lot of these other people. They're going to do the same thing. They're actually not going to. Cenk Uygur literally did advocate against defunding the FBI and bossing the FBI. His reason was we got to keep this rogue agency that literally causes more terrorism than they solve, that entraps people left and right, they're responsible for multiple crimes, hiding and protecting pedophiles and sex offenders. We got to protect those people because if we don't, that might help the Republicans. That is the argument that the dumb left is legitimately making. So let's listen to Morning Joe's meltdown, and then we get into Ilhan Omar's insane tweet. So let's check this out.
They're going on.
Let me fix the audio here, and then we get to this video. How you guys leave a comment? How you guys not liking this? Is Nick at Night a good name for this stream? I'm not good at making names. CJ always does that. I think I'm gonna do a few evening streams a week called Nick at Night because there's a lot of stuff to talk about that I don't necessarily get a chance to do on RBN Live. So let's watch this video. Let's listen to more
against the FBI. They're attacking the Pentagon. They're going to war against the FBI. They're attacking the Pentagon. They're attacking our top-ranked military officers. It's like, when are they going to ever learn? They're really the political stupidity here. The political malpractice continues. And I know there are a lot of former Republicans like me that say, this is really bad. America needs a...
People, dumb Americans, really believe that the MSNBC is a left-wing woke network. That is what the dumb people on the right, that is what MAGA communists, that is what they will tell you. They will tell you that Morning Joe and MSNBC is the woke show. Meanwhile, they got their lead anchor, the guy they named the show off of, is a 90s Republican that is in dismay over the Pentagon being cut, our bloated Pentagon budget. And this is what dummies on the right believe is the left network. Unbelievable.
Competent conservative party. And instead, we just have these idiots running around trying to attack the military, trying to attack our intel services, trying to destroy the FBI.
There's a long history, as you pointed out this week, of this not turning out well for Democrats or Republicans, going after the military, going after the FBI, going after the intelligence agencies, which are popular with the American people.
No, they're not. No, they are not. They are more approved by the Democratic Party. Like, when you look at polls, the Democrats approve of intelligence agencies and the police more, but then Republicans are largely against it. Independents are largely against it. So this is a blatant lie. I covered before how 55% independents, 74% Democrats support defunding the police. 1 out of 3 people who consider themselves to be far right is all for defunding the police. And don't even ask the question of defunding the military. That's massively popular, decreasing the Pentagon budget. But we live in a capitalist dictatorship. So despite how popular decreasing military spending, police spending, FBI spending is, it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is how popular it is to the ruling class. So in the ruling class, I guess because his audience, he's talking to the ruling class, it is unpopular to defund the military. It is unpopular to defund the FBI, the police, when you consider who they are talking to. But that is just an objective lie. And this is all about the whole narrative of chaos. So yeah, Morning Joe saying Republican Party is the party of chaos. They're the party that is here to destroy your institutions. And guess who's here to sell it? So we all know Morning Joe I can say Morning Joe. His name is Joe Scarborough. We all know Joe Scarborough is a former Republican, right? But they got progressives repeating his same line. And they are here to convince us what the Republicans are doing by holding the FBI accountable is bad. Look at this. Look at this tweet by Ilhan Omar. And I explained before, even if the Republican Party is using this to protect Trump, even if they are not being good faith on this, our job as Marxists and as socialists is to exploit divisions within capital. Let me explain that again. If you are a socialist and communist, especially in this country where a violent revolution is not happening anytime soon, our only job is to help advocate and push the country towards socialism, towards communism, towards a pro-working class approach. And the best way to do that is to highlight and exploit capitalist infighting, capitalist divisions. So yeah, if there's one division of capital that's calling out a central force that we got to destroy, like the FBI, right? Then we take advantage of that and then change the messaging, explain why we need to defund the FBI. Yes, they want to hold the Republicans want to hold the FBI accountable, but they're doing it to only protect politicians. Well, let's take that and say we got to hold the FBI accountable for entrapping and creating terrorism. Will Republican members of the ruling class agree with you? Probably not, but the average conservative will. I know. I have these conversations all the time on social media and in real life. We have conservatives that are like, yeah, let's defund the FBI. You bring up crimes at the FBI. You bring up how the FBI went after MLK, how they spy on leftist organizations. They're like, okay, good. Let's get rid of the FBI for that too. This is how you move the Overton window to the left, but that is not what the squad is here to do. The squad is here to be good Democrats. The DSA and Justice Democrats is the youth wing of the Democratic Party. So Ilhan Omar and the squad, their job is to take very unpopular beliefs like defending the FBI and find a way to twist themselves in the pretzel to explain, to make it sound like they're young and edgy. So look at this thread. This thread is unbelievable. Ilhan says she just voted no on the Republican bill to establish a select committee to investigate the agency's overseeing accountability for the January 6th insurrection. You see how she frames it here? Investigate agencies overseeing the accountability for the January 6th insurrection. So they like, all right, let's invoke January 6th and say this is why we shouldn't defund the FBI. Even though the FBI is responsible for harassing and criminalizing the working class, black and brown people, let's keep them in power so we can go after a bunch of dumb rednecks that was entrapped by the FBI. This is literally unbelievable that they are trying to spin it this way. Let's keep the FBI, let's keep the CIA, let's keep all these institutions, because if we don't, that would help the Republican Party. You guys see how the red-blue game completely destroys critical thinking skills? It destroys revolutionary action because they are working backwards from the conclusion where anything that would benefit the blue team is good, anything that will hurt the red team is bad. So in this situation, you had the intelligence agencies that are literally follow the directions of the Democrat Party. So they view that as good. So they must protect the FBI. So then you have Ilhan pretty much doing word salad here. She said, dubbed the church committee. The panel uncovered surveillance and abuses against civil rights leaders such as MLK. This motherfucker. I literally raved so hard when I saw this tweet. Ilhan Omar is invoking the name of MLK to defend the FBI. Do you guys understand how fucked this is? How much rage builds in me knowing that this sellout black motherfucker like Ilhan, she is using our leaders, our revolutionary leaders, as a way to make the argument, the liberal argument why we shouldn't defund the FBI. He said, well, the FBI, the old church committee, they uncovered what the FBI did to MLK. Okay, Ilhan, do you see what the FBI did to the Uhuru Black Socialist movement, whose trial is coming up soon? They literally smeared a black socialist movement and raided them because they accused them of being Russian puppets. They are still going after black and brown communities to this day. But Ilhan says, well, the church community exposed the FBI corruption around MLK, but they won't do it for this committee. So that's why I voted no. So this is what she says. I had high hopes that this will be a church-style committee where we can investigate surveillance of American citizens, violations of civil liberties, and the intelligence community's overseas abuses of power. She said, it's clear that this committee is going to be one of personal grievances in defending insurrectionists. You guys see what the number one thing that she's opposing here? She said, we must keep the FBI in place because if we don't, that would defend the insurrectionists, the January 6 people. So my suggestion to Ilhan, the obvious thing I'm sure all of us is thinking, if you support calling out the FBI, which I don't think you really do, I call bullshit on you. If we really support uncovering the crimes of the FBI, like the ones we know of, their entrapment and bullshit prosecution of the Uhuru Black Socialist movement, for example. When they launch this investigation, you make public your grievances of the FBI and throw it in the bin. You use this opportunity. You can say, yeah, the Republicans, they are all about political opportunism. Well, they are literally not really uncovering the crimes of the FBI. This is what the FBI is really doing. Use this opportunity to make the argument against the FBI, as every leftist should be doing, even if the right wing is full of shit. But instead of doing that, she is pointing at the right wing and said we must support the FBI in order to make the Republicans weaker. Is she doing what they are doing in Brazil, where they are holding police officers accountable? Nope. In fact, Ilhan and the squad voted to increase Capitol Police funding after January 6th. So Ilhan wants to focus on the people that was entrapped by the FBI. And I'm gonna show you guys some receipts as well. The January 6th was a giant psyop bullshit operation. Nothing like what happened in Brazil. You literally had FBI informants in January 6th. You had the FBI that literally helped coordinate the kidnapping of Gretchen Whitmer Yes, this has been widely reported. So Ilhan Omar, you don't want any oversight over the FBI, who literally tried to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer? You're not interested in that. These are the real dumb left that run us off a cliff. So this is the corrupt institution that Ilhan is not interested in having any oversight on, because that is what this is. Ilhan is accusing them, and I'm not even saying she's not telling the truth, because I don't have any faith in Republicans, but Ilhan is accusing them of only doing this to guard the insurrectionists. But it is an oversight committee. So why wouldn't you want oversight over stuff like this? Look at this. FBI had informants in Proud Boys during January 6th riots. Star Witness exposes FBI tactics in Whitmer kidnapping case. And I don't gotta say it. I can look it up though. There's studies that show, reports that show, the FBI creates more terrorism than they solve. It's a shocking fact, but it's true. So despite this, even if you think the January 6th insurrection was the worst thing that ever happened in this country, why wouldn't you want an oversight committee that would expose the FBI tactics, what they did in January 6th, the people that they entrapped? You notice how Ilhan has no curiosity about that at all. Jesus fucking Christ. I'm going to show you guys this tweet from Hakeem Jeffries, showing that the Democrats is going all in on defending the FBI. Hakeem Jeffries said today, extreme MAGA Republicans have established a select committee on insurrection protection. We will fight it tooth and nail. Do they say, look, this is what the committee is about? The weaponization of the federal government. So they take that and say, oh, well, we can't do this because if you do, it will help the insurrectionists. I am trying to do it both ways for people even who disagree with me, because I think January 6th is a joke. If you don't think it's a joke, why would you be against this anyway? Expose the FBI role in January 6th. Expose the role in kidnapping Gretchen Whitmer. But they are not interested in that, because they know the FBI and the intelligence agencies serve them. The Twitter files show this. How Democrats like Adam Schiff, they got Twitter to ban their enemies. The FBI invested in Twitter. It's all one big club. This is Glenn Greenwald. Great tweet on this. In less than 12 hours, Democrats unanimously tried to block an investigation into abuses of power by the CIA, FBI, and DHS, their key institutional allies. So I actually didn't notice this. I didn't realize. I didn't pick that up. But apparently they were supposed to investigate the DHS as well, and the Republicans blocked that. So the squad who was calling for defunding ICE, which is part of the DHS, decreasing the funding for DHS, the people who used to call out the Department of Homeland Security and to abolish ICE, they are now blocking investigations into the DHS. You cannot make this shit up. Because as Glenn says, they view them as their key institutional allies. And without a single hearing happening, have convinced millions of their sheep that this is about empowering insurrection. And that is what Glenn Greenwald calls out here. They're saying that, oh, the only reason why they want to hold the FBI accountable because January 6th, which may or may not be the case. But if you're a leftist that against these violent institutions, you will use whatever excuse possible to weaken them. But that is not what they are. The squad at this point are glorified institutionalists themselves. So I can't wait to see Cenk Uyghur's covering this, because you know he's gonna repeat the same thing. Actually, let's see if I can find a damn tweet. I'm gonna type Cenk FBI. He sent out an unhinged tweet a long time ago. Let's see if I can find it. This is my tweet while I tweeted about it. Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. Oh, this is some unhinged tweet he did against prison abolition. It's not really that important for this story. I really wish I could find that one. Here's one where he's apologizing for the prison industrial complex. Anyway, I can't find it. Oh well, not a big deal. But Jank pretty much put a tweet out that was like, "I actually don't support defund." What did he say in video? He said on video, like, "I don't support defunding the FBI." Damn, I really need to find a tweet. I should put it in my story. I guess I'll do a chat check real quick. I'm gonna see if I can find it if I search a little bit harder. I'll do a chat check before we wrap up here. If you guys are enjoying the stream, like I'm literally flowing the idea of having at least Wednesday evening because I know Sabby doesn't go live. Oh, I remember what it was. It was in their debate. When Jank debated Bree, that's when he said that I wouldn't be for defunding the FBI because it will help Republicans. We covered that at the time. Now I got like it wasn't actually a debate. That's why I had the tweet of him saying it. It's only a matter of time before all the boutique left repeats that. But I'm gonna try to do the Nick at Night since I see you guys like the name. I do a quick chat check before we leave tonight. So I think that's what I'm gonna call it. I'm always super. I'm like, is that a dumb name? I'm not good at names. Ask CJ. CJ comes with all our names and shit. Yep, we'll all use. Yep, they will all use the same talking point tomorrow. That's what I'm assuming it's saying. Make sure you guys like the stream. I got a link to the Patreon in the description. If you also want to leave a tip for tonight's show, you can drop me $3. I got direct donations via Cashapp, SocialistMMA, and Revolutionary Blackout is our Venmo. So if you guys want to leave me a tip, that helps out a lot. I had to buy a new car battery, so this month is pretty tough, guys. I'm not gonna lie. So anything you guys can do to help us support RBN, we definitely appreciate it. If you guys want to like, share, and tell your friends about these streams because we are throttled by the algorithm pretty bad, as you guys see, because I'm talking about Ukraine. We debunking Western narratives on Ukraine. So yeah, I'm glad. I was scrolling through some comments. I'm glad that you guys like the name. Nick at Night need to be a regular thing. Yeah, maybe I should because I used to do my show. I used to do my show in the evening times, but then I had a schedule change. I think I may be able to. I think I may be able to do it again. So I think since you guys like it, I did this time on Wednesday because I know Sabby goes live usually around 7 p.m. Eastern time, and I have a strict no stream while other RBN members are streaming policy. So maybe I might do Nick at Night at like 9 Eastern time, 10 Eastern time, just to cover some stories that we didn't get a chance to cover in longer live streams. I also think that would help me because you guys notice when I do RBN live, when I do Nick and CJ, I am 100% aware that I talk too fucking much. I'm very aware of that. Sometimes, and when I first started this, when I had my old channel, SocialistMMA, I used to do this alone. I'll have Zoya, JB, Rome. They would join me on my old channel every once in a while. But I used to love doing solo rant streams, and that's why I tend to talk too much. I know for a fucking fact I do, and I try not to do that when I have my RBN brothers and sisters on. But I think I can. I think I can help that if I can do at least a solo stream, at least 2 or 3 times a week, maybe. Yeah, Zoe, I've been waiting for you. I'm not gonna say what Zoe been doing, but Zoe, she's been having a lot of fun recently. So you guys haven't seen Zoe for a reason, but we need to bring Nick and Zoya back as well. You gotta be available in the evening. So yeah, I'm kind of taking a live poll from you guys right now. 10 or 9 would be perfect. Absolutely. We got super chat. Let's go. I appreciate it. This is gonna be a tough month for me, guys. I am not going to lie. So appreciate the $2. Thank you for the super chat, my friend. Thank you for the $50. Keep doing geopolitics, and I'll keep watching. Nick at Night. Let's go. Absolutely. There's some stories that it's just better for you to break down solo, right? So I think I'm gonna focus more on geopolitical politics and state violence on these Nick and Night segments. So with that said, I think I'm gonna make this short story. Yeah, one more, because I already went longer, so I will make this a 90-minute stream. So if you guys are enjoying, please support the show via Patreon. I got the link in that description. Share, like, and because I got one more story I can get into. Because I don't think this is a long one, so I think I can fit this in the last 10 minutes. We're going to talk about the homeless problem and capitalism. I explained in a recent live stream, and I had someone someone reach out to me. I saw a top comment before that said that RBN does a good job explaining to socialism and communism in ordinary ways that people can understand and doesn't turn them off. And I take pride in that. The reason I'm saying that because I saw that comment when they said RBN does a good job explaining socialism, and I'm like, fuck yes. That's exactly what we're trying to do. We're not watering down our message to be more appealing. I want to be persuasive. Instead of me changing my message like we see other people do, I want to get people on our side, right? So I use very simple terminology. I explain to people how what we are talking about when it comes to socialism, communism, or any economic model is how we centrally planning our resources. That's what it's really about. Human greed exists in no matter what country there is, but does your system minimize the harm of greed? So the idea of the dictatorship of the proletariat is that we all know that people, they want for their own best interest. They will vote for their own bottom line. So if you have a dictatorship of the proletariat, the people who are poor, the people who are working class, you get people who vote in their best interest. We want those people to be dictating stuff. We don't want people who control the central planning model or the people who only care about infinite profits. Like if you're rich, if you own capital, you're not worried about the quality of life of other people. But if you're poor and working class, you worry about yourself and you worry about your family. That's why we need dictatorship of the proletariat. The reason why we need to seize the means of crucial infrastructure is because we cannot have people go homeless because there's a profit incentive. The only reason people defend student loan debt because the profit incentive. They believe that, oh, the oligarchs, you guys need to pay the oligarchs your money. That does not make sense. The reason why we have hospital beds overran, the reason why we have Big Pharma making record profits, and the reason why you distrust government is because of the profit motive. You distrust Big Pharma. You distrust the vaccines, which I think is very legitimate. I think we should question our government. The reason why people are anti-vax, the reason why people don't like Big Pharma is because they know they don't care about public health. We all know that Big Pharma was pushing the vaccines not because of health. Even if you agree with the vaccines, you can admit that. No, they were not doing it because of health. They were doing it to increase their profits, which they have done. The reason why people don't trust the Ukraine war is because they know the Ukraine war is literally only to increase the profits of the weapon defense contractors. So the right wing and the conservatives who agree with both those main points, they think they're capitalists, but they're not. They're exploited workers. You are skeptical of capital. You are skeptical of profits, and people inherently believe that should be mixed in government, but they're just too afraid to call themselves a socialist and communist, right? So you're going to keep your car. You're going to keep your TV because we don't need that as a proletariat. But you're not allowed to own a hospital, right? You're not allowed to own homes and land that could be used to house people. In China, which haven't completely achieved socialism and communism yet, they were smart enough to realize this, and the banks are nationalized. So when people get home loans in China, it's not based on the profit motive. It's about how many people can we house? What is possible here? So what we have an unhinged system that comes from neo-feudalism called landlords. Oh, I love talking about landlords, especially the capitalists who mine are just now starting to become decolonized, where they like, oh, yeah, I think something is up with the housing market, but they stay afraid to call out capitalists and they're afraid to call out landlords. And I'm gonna tell you guys right now, I don't have any disagreements with Mao on landlords, because in capitalism, because everything's driven by profit motive, they said let's have people own land, let have people own houses, and because they will react to the free market, that would be the most effective way to house people. We know that's an objective failure. That is not true. That is not true. Having a central planning model that is based on private capital allows BlackRock to buy up houses. It allows landlords to have unbelievable power in our government. What does this lead to? Now we can discuss so many things, whether it's healthcare, like once again, the vaccines, the wars that people don't trust. All the mistrust is because of this. Look at this. This is what happens when your central planning model is all about giving money to landlords and having them to provide housing. You guys see this? There's so many videos like these. I literally pulled this because I got tired of seeing them. Like on Twitter, there's like this new trend of people like just looking at our cities like, what the fuck? What the fuck? So I want you guys to look at it. This is the face that we at RBN, we see all the time. Me and Ron, we was out feeding the homeless. There's so many homeless people in Kansas City. Like, we didn't even have a location in mind, dude. We literally drove to the city. We talked to some people like, hey, you see some homeless people? And there were homeless people literally like 2 blocks away. A large homeless camp and population like this you see here. This is in every city. This is in California. This is in New York. These are Democrat-ran supermajorities where there's millions of people homeless. Where you're literally looking at what other people would consider a third world country. Like, imagine this footage in Venezuela. Can you imagine the headlines? This is the United States. And remember, remember the conversation I was having with Robbie on The Hills Rising, where I'm like, dude, you guys are talking about Venezuela and the failings of socialism as we have Skid Row. As we have this going on, as we have massive homelessness in every major city, they have the nerve to bring up Venezuela. And this is really bad in blue states. But I want you guys to know, not only blue states, it's red states as well. I'll say a super chat. I need to do, it's hard to watch the chat when I'm alone, so super chat is a good way to get my attention. Thank you for the $10. Nick at Night, yes. You need to keep doing this, and I will support. Much appreciated, Brian. Much appreciated. That definitely helped drive the motivation. So I definitely appreciate the super chat. I think this is going to be a thing. This is definitely going to be a thing because I miss just ranting. Yeah, so the chat is going up. I am sorry I'm behind, guys. I can quickly find super chats. So that's a good way to support the channel. Good way to get my attention as well. I'm going to show this. So when you see the massive amount of homeless I'll show you guys in that video, what is the reaction of the liberal class? What is the reaction of the Democratic Party that people think cares about the working class people? Their message right now, despite this, is not for housing initiatives. It's for increasing the police budgets. That is their answer. So I'm going to show you guys this unhinged clip and show you how cops in blue states handle these issues. So this is a homeless man, and this was 2 years ago, but there's an update to this story. There was a homeless guy. I'll just read the tweet. It said, a homeless man left a crowded shelter the night of May 25th and sat on a train with a few tote bags. Cops told him to leave. Then this psychopath starts drilling on him. Look at this. That boy starts drilling him. So you told me that this guy, this cop, the people that are apparently well trained, so much millions of our dollars come to train these people. You told me this guy could not apprehend this guy who's going through obviously sort of mental illness, or even not. It doesn't even matter. You told me you can't apprehend this guy without launching a Chuck Liddell style 3-piece on him. So as someone who's a martial artist, I trained jiu-jitsu for about 5 years. I can easily apprehend someone like it's nothing. Most people have no idea how to grapple. Like if you train jiu-jitsu at a good gym for like a year, you will learn how to hold people, control people. It's very easy. You would be shocked at how bad people are at fighting and grappling. Right? So I see these clips of these cops beating the shit out of people all the time, where it literally could be a basic judo jiu-jitsu hold that will solve the problem. And so whenever I see this, especially as a martial artist, I'm like, these people are not fucking trained. Liberals keep sending all this money to train the police, but they can't even apprehend a random guy in the subway. And look at who's doing it. A black cop. A black cop. I told you guys, black cops are the worst. Black cops are the worst because they have to overcompensate. Because if you're a black cop, you got to prove to your homies on the force that you're not going to be weak on the black, your kin, right? You're not going to be weak on the working class. Now, this story was 2 years ago. So what was the result of this story? I think it has a happy ending. Happy, not really, because it's still a sign of what happens in our society. Reuven said the city has quietly agreed to pay the homeless man $135,000 after the cops dragged him off a near empty train because he was taking 2 seats. So that was their objection. This is the story. The city paid this guy $135,000 because of Eric Adams' unhinged war against the homeless, and someone went too far. Now, let me explain to you guys a very basic concept. Who do you guys think is paying for this? For all the fiscal conservatives out there, who's paying for this, sir? The city is. The taxpayers are paying $135,000 to this homeless guy because this stupid black police piece of shit couldn't keep his hands to himself. Now, I see some people in comments saying that's nothing, and that is nothing. But think about it like this. Taxpayers are paying this guy because the cops went unhinged, which happens all the time. This is why we got to make it so that whenever the cops are sued, they got to pay out, they got to come out of their pensions. That will stop this shit real quick. Do you guys understand that with $135,000, what can you do? With $135,000, you can house this person. You guys understand? With the amount of money they paid this guy to drag this homeless guy out the subway, you can literally house him. Well, for $135K, you're housing him and he getting an allowance. So do you guys see how the inefficient model of capitalism? Instead of housing people, we were paying $135,000 to people after the cops beat the shit out of them. Instead of housing people, California will spend $30,000 per unit on anti-homeless infrastructure. You guys see the ineffective central planning model that is capitalism? In our country that is uniquely, no country funds the police more than we do. Our police spending is higher than every other country's military budget except China's. Our police is larger than every other country's military. You guys think that's an accident? That we are the head? We are in the hub, a capitalist empire? You guys think that's a coincidence? It's not. Capitalism is authoritarianism. And it's a very ineffective system at that. Because with that same money that they paid that guy out with, we could have housed them. Could have housed multiple people. Eric Adams knows this. The capitalist class knows this. But if you do that, you're not benefiting the landlords. You're not getting your sweet, sweet private prison bed. Right? These people are not, I'll put it like this. I am not smarter than these people. I am a college dropout, guys. I'm a college dropout stoner. I am not that smart. The members of our ruling class is exceptionally bad faith. Not dumb, bad faith. They know what will be more efficient. They know it will be more efficient to house people instead of criminalize them. Hell, how much it costs to even criminalize that guy? How much is that salary of that cop you paying right now? How much of the resources are you spending doing this stuff? Instead of simply having a housing initiative program. So they know what they're doing. I still had the Ilhan Omar clip up, banner up. Oh well, god damn it. I need to learn from my man CJ, who's much better at producing these shows than I am. You guys should have told me I had the Ilhan banner up the whole time. Fuck. Oh well. You guys loved it. You guys loved the show. And the show got a little bit of charm because of my bloopers, right? Oh man. Let's see. Did I miss any super chats? Yeah, I'm a college dropout fam. I was like, what the fuck am I doing? It's a long story. I'll spare you guys. I was like, what the fuck am I doing? I was not into that shit at all. And the funny thing, I think I would have graduated. Like, I should have started college later. I was not ready for that shit. I just heard people say, you gotta go to college. All right, I guess I'll go to college. And I was like, this is bullshit. This is bullshit. It's a long story. I might share it with you guys another time. I was deeply in poverty, chasing girls around. The funny thing is, I told you guys, I became a history nerd in like my late 20s. Not late 20s, early 20s. And this is how I became like the political junkie that you guys know now. I became extremely fascinated about learning shit, like studying history. If I had that same intellectual curiosity when I was in college, I think I would have a PhD. Because I learned to love learning later. Like when I was a teenager, I just wanted to train martial arts, play basketball, play video games, smoke weed, and chase girls. But now, I don't know. I'm just talking shit. Let's see. What am I missing? Am I missing super chats? I got to check. Appreciate it. A big shout out to Ryan Hunaska. Thank you for the $5 on Venmo. I see you there. Big shout out to Ryan for that. Yeah, I do need to have Garland on. It's been a long time since I had Garland on. I reached out to him, I think last summer. I didn't hear back. But y'all need to reach out to Garland again. I think I'm pretty smart, but I am not like academia like level smart, right? I am not. I don't know, man. You see these super high IQ motherfuckers. I don't consider myself to be that. That's why I'm shocked. I was like shocked seeing how bad the boutique left and the NATO left, and these Ivy educated intercept Jacobin motherfuckers who I know for a fact is smarter than me, but I see them get politics wrong. You know what I mean? That is the shit that drove me crazy. Well, I'm like, my dumb ass is here seeing through all this propaganda, can explain history better than all these people, so why not start a YouTube channel? And I'll read your guys' comments. When I was on call-in, our community, they drop heat like I do. I think we got a really well-formed intellectual community. If you just have any sort of intellectual curiosity, if you have any sort of intellectual discipline, you can obtain knowledge, especially with time. I'm 32 years old. It took me a very long time to get the knowledge I do. I told you I laughed at all my stupid ass takes I used to have. All my stupid theories of changes I used to have. Right? I make fun of that because I never and I'm still not where I want to be at. I still think I can learn a lot more. I am obsessed with learning more. And that's why, and I think, and this is a message I said before, I think I'm talking to Rome, but I might well repeat it. And as a revolution, as a social movement, we got to reject the dumb left, the NATO left. These people have no curiosity. People like Anna Kasparian, like, no, I didn't read Marx. I don't care about that. I don't care. You know, the guy who literally have the most popular economic model in the last 200 years, you're not going to look into that at all. Like I remember to this day, I saw someone post her saying this. She's like, yeah, I never read Marx. Not interesting to me. These people who have giant platforms, their job is to explain political politics, but they never read one of the most influential economic writers of our time. They never read Michael Prenti. Never read anything that any influential members of the Black Panthers wrote. So it's not like I'm smarter than these people. It's just that a lot of people in the boutique left have no intellectual curiosity. They think they're confident, they're white, they're wealthy, so they know it all. All they have to do is look at a camera. All they have to do is look at a camera, say some shit confidently, and people will like and subscribe. So we just out-hustle these people. I do a lot of studying. I do a lot of reading. I make sure I'm well-informed on all the topics I explain to you guys about. So I don't want you guys to think it as smart versus not smart. I think everyone can hit the level I'm at. You guys got to have curiosity, which the American mainstream want to kill. They didn't want you to look into the vaccines. They didn't want you to do your own research. They don't want you to look into the Ukraine war. They don't want you to look into Democratic Party lies. They don't want you to look into FBI. They don't want you to support defund police. They don't want you to do any of this shit. They want you to be dumb. They want you to be intellectually lazy, and they want you to digest whatever come on TV. And I personally rejected that lifestyle. And that's what I implore other people to do, especially if you're a leftist that are trying to build something. In this country, we have to be smarter. We have to be more wiser than our opposition. We don't have the luxury of just winging it like the way liberals and conservatives do because they're funded by capital. We have to be laser focused. The Black Panthers got so much shit done. The Black Panthers, the most successful communist organization in American history, and white people need to recognize that. Black Panthers is the most successful communist organization in history. They did so because they used to have monthly theory readings. You guys know that? If you was a high-ranking person in the Black Party, you was required not only to read, you had to teach people the shit you read about. So the Black Panthers, they was like, we're not winging this shit. We're gonna study, we're gonna learn, and we're gonna educate our proletariat. And they became such a threat that law enforcement had to come after them. FBI had to come out against them. They had to be infiltrated. Their leaders had to be killed and destroyed because the establishment was so scared of their intellectual prowess. So it's not being elitist. So if you're one of the people that work 50 hours a week, if you have 3 kids, you don't have time to read theory, it's okay, boo-boo, I got you. That is our job as Marxist educators to explain this stuff to people who do not have time to do research. To the job for people who have the ability, whether it be because you got extra time, because whether you do stuff on the job. I used to do this all the time when I sell cars, read on the job. It's our responsibility to educate ourselves so we can educate people who cannot do so and build our revolution. So, thank you for feeding. I think I went in with a nice motivational speech. I think that was a good speech, guys. I miss giving speeches. I used to do that all the time in South Carolina. Anyway, thank you for the $50. Brian, man, I'm so glad I logged on today because you guys are supporting with the super chats and Venmo. Once again, it's gonna be a hard month for me this month. I'll be straight up. So anything that support, I appreciate. Thank you for $50. Brian, like I said, keep this going. You're giving Bree and Glenn 5. What a compliment. What a compliment, Brian. Thank you. I appreciate that. 2 people also enjoy talking to a lot as well. I followed Glenn Greenwald's work for a long time. Like him, his anti-war stuff, him debunking Russiagate, his work with Julian Assange, his work with Lula. So, guys, it is really fucking weird and humbling to be invited on this new show, System Update, and to even be compared to Glenn. So, much love. Thank you for the $20. Nick at Night solo stream is the best. I'm glad we're getting good reviews. Let's go. Let's go. We're getting good reviews. This is the debut of Nick at Night. So I'm glad the fact that you guys showing some love gives me more reason to continue this moving forward. I'm definitely gonna do this Wednesday nights. I might do this a little bit later because I got a hardcore no stream when the other RBN members stream policy. So maybe I think this is what we're gonna do. I think maybe at least 3 times a week, I'm gonna go on after Sabby. Like I'm literally gonna be waiting till Sabby's done, but load the stream up like 10 minutes later. So you guys watch Sabby, then you guys come over here at Nick at Night. I think we need to do more stuff at RB. I like that idea. So I think there was one more super chat I missed. But anyway, let me finish reading this one. Nick at Night solo stream is the best. Even got a little Socialist MMA fight commentary. I am a big martial art nerd. I'm gonna do an RBN martial arts show one day. We may spin that off. My fight library, I can tell you guys everything about old school boxing, old school MMA, fight philosophy. My biggest regret is never having the ability to go pro, which I still may. I'm still not rolling it out with my delusional ass. You know what I mean? So martial art content, definitely possibility this year. Because I love fucking. I don't call myself Socialist MMA for no reason. I don't call myself the progressive martial artist for no reason. It's a passion of mine. If I ever stop training martial art, I will literally go crazy. And one day, you want to know what kills me, guys? Then my last thought, I signed up. What kills me is I had a YouTube channel where I had all these videos of me sparring and me coaching. And like, fuck, that YouTube channel got hacked and no longer available. So later this year, I must maybe get some sparring videos up and show you guys what I can do. Because, you know, I've been training Muay Thai for 12 years. I used to train with pros all the time. I used to spar with people who could Bellator. They used to recruit out of Kansas City. So I was in college, so I couldn't fight full time. So I used to go, and they used to recruit me. They're like, man, Nick, we need you to help with our fighters. I used to train with Bellator fighters, and I used to help prepare them for their fights. Like, it was very fun, man. And I might get into that later. Oh yeah, I gotta make sure I don't cut into Savvy's calling show. All right, anyway, let's I'll talk about martial arts later. Again, you guys set me off on the tangent. Anyway, I'm way longer than I thought I was gonna be tonight, but this was fun. I'm glad you guys enjoyed. I would think I would say the new show or being Nick at Night. I'm gonna try to make it a thing so you guys like it. Yeah, just make sure you guys share, like, support the Patreon as well. And appreciate you guys for watching. Have a good one, fam. I think we're gonna sign off today. I think we're gonna do Nick and CJ tomorrow. If not, we still have Sabby and JB for Thursday. So appreciate you guys. Peace out.